The day I received my $2,500,000 retirement buyout package after 32 years at Summit Engineering, I came home 2 hours early to surprise my husband, but as I opened the front door of our house in Seattle, I heard his voice coming from the second floor talking on the phone. "Don't worry, my love, once the divorce is finalized, we'll have at least half, maybe more if her lawyer is incompetent." I froze at the bottom of the oak staircase, the same staircase where we had taken our family Christmas photos for 30 years. The same stairs I walked up the day we bought this house back in 2000. What my husband didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I had heard everything. And what I would do next would change our lives forever. But before we get into the story, please support me by hitting the like button and subscribing right now. I also want to say hi to all of you. Leave me your name, your city, and ideas for upcoming stories in the comments. Thank you. My name is Margaret Vance. I am 65 years old. That morning I had received the retirement package I had dreamed about for decades. 32 years of 14-hour days, working weekends, missed family dinners, canceled trips, all culminating in a single moment. My boss, Mr. Sterling, had hugged me with tears in his eyes, telling me I had earned every single penny. The company threw me a farewell luncheon at the Seattle Japanese Garden. My colleagues gifted me an engraved gold watch that read, "To Margaret, Exemplary Architect, 1993 to 2025. I drove back home with the signed papers on the passenger seat, imagining my husband Richard's face when I told him that finally, we were financially secure for the rest of our lives. Instead, I was standing in my own entryway listening to my husband plan my financial ruin. I didn't walk up the stairs, I didn't confront him. I quietly set down my briefcase, went back to my car, and drove to a coffee shop on Mercer Street about 3 miles away. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. For the next hour sitting in that cafe nursing a hot chocolate, I couldn't swallow. I replayed every moment of our marriage. There had been signs, of course there had. Richard had grown distant over the last year. He had started going to Equinox 6 days a week. Brand new designer clothes. A trendy haircut from an expensive barbershop in Bellevue. He had put a passcode on his phone for the first time in our entire marriage. When I asked him about it, he laughed and said, "Margaret, everyone has passcodes now, don't be so old-fashioned." I believed him because I trusted him. Because I had spent 32 years building a life with him. Because he was my husband, the father of my children, my partner. But sitting in that coffee shop, watching life go on as normal for everyone else outside the window, I realized something crucial. Richard didn't know about the massive buyout package yet. The official company announcement wouldn't hit my inbox until tomorrow. He couldn't have known, which meant he had been planning this divorce anyway, probably assuming he would just get half of my regular 401k and Social Security. The $2,500,000 was an unexpected windfall he had just found out about somehow. I pulled out my phone and called my colleague Chloe from the IT department. Chloe had worked with me for 15 years. She was the only person I could trust. "Chloe, I need to ask you a huge favor. Can you check who accessed my retirement file before it was officially announced?" There was a pause. "Margaret, I could get in a lot of trouble for that. Please, Chloe, it's an absolute emergency." 15 minutes later, Chloe called me back. Her voice was tense. "Your file was accessed the day before yesterday at 3:45 p.m. by Susan Miller in Human Resources. But Margaret, there's something else." The file was emailed to an outside address. I can see the domain. It's MarcusThorneDivorceAdvisory.com. Marcus Thorne Divorce Advisory and Wealth Protection. I Googled it right there in the coffee shop. The website featured a professional headshot of a man in his mid-40s. Handsome, fit, smiling with absolute confidence. His services included retirement planning, financial advisory for divorces, asset protection, and maximizing marital settlements. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the floor drop out from beneath me. So that was the man he was talking to. Not just a financial advisor specializing in divorce. Someone who helps spouses take everything from their partners. And someone in HR, Susan Miller, had illegally leaked my confidential information to him. I knew Susan. She had worked at Summit Engineering for 7 years. I never thought she was particularly close to Richard, but then again I had never paid attention. I had been too busy working, managing projects, and being the primary breadwinner for our family for 3 decades. I drove back home 3 hours later. Richard was in the kitchen making chicken parmesan as if nothing had happened. He smiled when he saw me. "You're late, how was your day?" I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I had loved for 30 years, the father of my children, the person I had built my entire adult life with. It was fine, just wrapping up some final projects at the office. I didn't say a word about the retirement package, I didn't say a word about anything. I went upstairs, changed my clothes, and came down for dinner. We ate chicken parmesan, we watched an evening crime drama. We went to sleep, and the entire time my mind was racing with a single thought. I needed a plan. The next morning I woke up at 5:30 a.m. Richard was still asleep. I drove out to a law firm in Tacoma, 30 miles away from anyone who might know us. The attorney was named Evelyn Cross. I had found her online, she specialized in high net worth divorces. Friends, the stories I tell you come out every single day. But YouTube will only show them to you if you hit that red subscribe button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and you'll never miss a story, thank you. Evelyn was a woman in her late 50s with piercing eyes and an impeccable burgundy suit. I told her everything. The buyout package, the phone conversation I had overheard, the email sent from HR, the advisor named Marcus Thorne. She leaned back in her leather chair. Mrs. Vance, I'm going to be very direct with you. Your husband is planning to divorce you and take half of your retirement, possibly more if he can argue that he sacrificed his earning potential for your career, which in a 30-year marriage he could try to claim. I felt my stomach churn. However, Evelyn continued, we have several significant advantages. First, he doesn't know that you know. Second, the HR employee who sent your information committed wire fraud and violated federal privacy laws. Third, if we can prove your husband is having an extramarital affair with this financial advisor, that combined with financial conspiracy gives us massive leverage. Washington is an equitable distribution state, meaning the split doesn't have to be exactly 50-50. If we prove fraudulent dissipation of marital assets, the judge will not be kind to him. Fourth, the money hasn't officially dropped into your account yet. The papers are signed, but company policy says the transfer takes 35 days. So what do I do? Evelyn smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had won many battles. You act completely normal, you gather evidence, and in 35 days we make sure that retirement package is locked up in ways he can't even touch. I left her office with a strict list of instructions. Document everything, record conversations where legally permitted. Washington is a one-party consent state. Hire a private investigator. Do not move any money yet, do not change passwords, and absolutely do not let him know I suspected a damn thing. For the next week I played the role of the clueless happy wife to perfection. I went to my farewell lunches with colleagues at the Metropolitan Grill in Canlis. I cleaned out my downtown office. I brought home my plants, my awards, the photos spanning 32 years of architectural projects. Richard helped me set up a home office in the room that had belonged to our daughter Sarah before she got married. He was attentive, affectionate. He asked me about my retirement plans. I was thinking we could finally take that trip to Italy. He told me one night while we were drinking aged bourbon on the patio, "You've always wanted to see the Colosseum in Rome, we should start planning." He squeezed my hand. "I'm so proud of you, Margaret, 32 years, you worked so hard, you were the best architect in Seattle." I squeezed his hand back. "We built this life together, honey." The lies tasted like ash in my mouth. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator named David Shaw. David was an ex-detective in his 60s, highly professional, and incredibly discreet. I gave him Marcus Thorne's information, I gave him Richard's schedule, I authorized whatever budget he needed. David called me 5 days later. "Mrs. Vance, I have what you need, can you come to my office?" I drove down immediately. His office was in an unassuming commercial plaza near Lumen Field. David had a thick manila folder waiting for me. Inside were photographs. Richard and Marcus Thorne having lunch at a restaurant in Everett. Richard and Marcus checking into a hotel in Olympia. Timestamps, dates. The affair had been going on for 9 months. "There's more," David said, sliding another folder toward me. I looked into Thorne. He specializes in helping spouses maximize divorce settlements. His website claims he offers pre-divorce asset analysis. What that actually means is he helps identify and plan how to drain the maximum value from a marriage before filing. He's been involved in at least 15 high-profile divorces in the last 4 years. In 13 of them, his clients walked away with significantly more than 50%. How various tactics, hiding assets offshore or in shell companies before filing, strategic timing. In 3 cases, there is evidence he coached his clients to manufacture documentation suggesting financial abuse or extreme control by their partner. I stared at the photographs. Richard smiling at this man. Richard with his hand on this man's arm in a hotel parking lot. Richard kissing this man in a car. 30 years. 30 years of marriage, 3 kids, an entire life all reduced to a stack of glossy 8x10s. Get me everything, I said, every meeting, every communication, everything. I'm already on it, David replied. That night Richard made my favorite beef stew. He asked about my day. I told him I had gone shopping down at Pike Place Market. He believed me. Why wouldn't he? I had never lied to him in 30 years of marriage. Laying next to my husband that night, staring at the ceiling of our master bedroom, part of me wanted to confront him immediately, to scream, to demand answers, to cry. But Evelyn's voice echoed in my head. Do not let him know that you know, gather evidence, protect yourself. So I waited. 2 weeks after my retirement, the official announcement went out. I was in my home office when Richard walked in, his phone in his hand. His face showed a calculated mix of surprise and excitement. Margaret, I just saw in the Summit Engineering alumni Facebook group they gave you a buyout package. How much was it? I had prepared for this moment. Evelyn had coached me on exactly what to say. It's complicated, it's a pension restructuring, part of it is an immediate payout, but most of it is an annuity. The company is still finalizing the tax math. But roughly how much? I shrugged, feigning disinterest. After taxes and setting up the annuity, probably around $600,000 up front, the rest trickles in as monthly payments over 25 years. Richard's face fell slightly. He had been expecting $2,500,000 all at once. Oh well, that's still wonderful, we can do a lot with $600,000. We can, I agreed, though most of it should probably stay invested for our actual retirement, you know, for medical expenses when we get older. He nodded. But I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was recalculating, adjusting his timeline with Marcus Thorne. That night I caught him on the phone again. I had installed a small voice-activated recorder in our bedroom per Evelyn's advice that Washington law allowed it since I was a resident of the home. Richard went into the master bathroom, turned on the shower and made his call. It's less than we thought. He whispered over the sound of running water. She says it's $600,000 immediate, the rest is structured payments. There was a pause as the person on the other end spoke. I know, but we can't wait anymore. I'm turning 63 next month, we need to file soon. Another pause. Yeah, I understand the timing is bad, but it's fine. Yes, I'll see you Thursday at the usual spot. I played that recording for Evelyn the next morning. She listened carefully, making notes on her legal pad. Perfect, this establishes clear intent and conspiracy. Now, here's what we are going to do. The transfer of your buyout package happens in 14 days. The second it hits your account, we are going to move it immediately into an irrevocable retirement trust we are setting up this week. It's perfectly legal, ironclad, and specifically designed to shield specialized retirement assets, and then we file for divorce. You file first. Wait, I file first. Absolutely, the first one to file has significant advantages. You choose the jurisdiction, you control the narrative. And most importantly, with the evidence we have of adultery and financial conspiracy, you will be in the driver's seat. He will be scrambling to respond. Evelyn pulled out a detailed spreadsheet. Your house is worth roughly $850,000. You have $150,000 in joint savings. Your 401k has another $600,000. His 401k has about $80,000. You have 2 paid-off cars and some treasury bonds. In a normal Washington divorce, he would be entitled to roughly half of these marital assets. But Margaret, this is not a normal divorce. He has conspired to defraud you with his financial advisor Lover. He's already planning to hide assets. We are going to argue for a 65/35 split in your favor based on economic fault, and I believe we'll get it. And the buyout package? The buyout package is your separate property if we structure it correctly right now. It is compensation for your work earned by you alone. The trust will lock it down tight. He will fight it, but with his documented infidelity and the paper trail of financial conspiracy, he won't have much leverage. I sat in silence processing it all. When we file the day after your money deposits, we will have everything ready, Evelyn said. Trust established, divorce papers prepped, evidence compiled. It's going to hit him like a freight train. For the next 14 days, I played my part flawlessly. I talked to Richard about retirement trips. We looked at smaller houses in Mercer Island for eventually downsizing. He showed me brochures for retirement communities in Scottsdale, Arizona. The whole time he was planning to leave me destitute, And the whole time I was planning to protect everything I had worked 32 years to build. David continued his surveillance. He documented 4 more meetings between Richard and Marcus Thorne. He obtained records showing Marcus had advised Richard to start documenting fake controlling financial behaviors on my part. There were notes claiming I made all the financial decisions, kept him in the dark about our money, and was emotionally abusive. None of it was true. Richard had full access to all our accounts for 30 years. He had simply never been interested in managing them. He preferred I handle it while he coasted at his job at the car dealership. But Marcus Thorne was coaching him to build a case of financial abuse to paint me as the villain to justify taking the lion's share of everything. My blood boiled every time David showed me new evidence. On day 14, the buyout package hit my Chase account, $2,500,000. I watched it clear on my mobile app at 9:45 a.m. By 11:15 a.m., Evelyn had wired the entire sum into the Margaret Vance Retirement Trust. By 11:45 a.m., the trust was locked and shielded under state law. At 3:00 p.m. that very same day, Richard was served with divorce papers in our driveway. I wasn't there. Evelyn had advised me to stay at a hotel for the day. One of David's associates delivered the papers and recorded Richard's reaction. He was in shock, completely blindsided. He immediately called Marcus Thorne. Then he called a lawyer. By 6:00 p.m., Richard's lawyer had called Evelyn. Evelyn played the voicemail for me. The lawyer sounded confused and angry. They wanted to know about the buyout package, they wanted to negotiate. Evelyn called him back the next morning. I was sitting in her office. She put the call on speakerphone. My client is willing to discuss a settlement, Evelyn said calmly. However, I must inform you that we have extensive documentation of Mr. Vance's affair with Mr. Marcus Thorne, including photographs, hotel records, and recorded conversations discussing plans to maximize a divorce settlement through fraudulent claims of financial abuse. There was dead silence on the other end. Furthermore, Evelyn continued, her voice perfectly serene, we have evidence that your client obtained confidential information regarding Mrs. Vance's retirement package through illegal means. An HR employee at Summit Engineering unlawfully transmitted private corporate documents to Mr. Thorne. We are fully prepared to involve federal authorities for wire fraud and file civil suits against both Mr. Thorne and the HR employee if necessary. More silence. I could hear the heavy breathing of the lawyer. If you want to know how this story ends and hear many more like it, hit that red subscribe button, it's free, and it helps me out a lot, thank you. Now Evelyn said, here's what we are proposing. Mr. Vance receives 35% of the standard marital assets. That includes 35% of the home equity, 35% of the joint savings. He keeps his own 401k in full and he gets one vehicle. The buyout package remains the sole separate property of Mrs. Vance in her protected trust. In exchange, we will not report the wire fraud, and we will not publicly disclose the details of the extramarital affair and financial conspiracy in open court. You have 48 hours to respond. Evelyn hung up. I stared at her. Will he accept? He has no choice. If this goes to trial, he gets nothing from the attempt to commit fraud, and his lover faces federal prison time. This is a gift. 45 hours later, Richard's lawyer called back. They accepted the deal. The next 2 months were a whirlwind of paperwork and property division. Richard moved out of our house and into a small apartment in Renton. Marcus Thorne vanished from the picture entirely once his potential criminal liability became clear. The HR employee, Susan Miller, was fired from Summit Engineering and faced pending charges for privacy violations. Richard and I met one final time to sign the final decrees. It was in Evelyn's office. Richard looked older, somehow exhausted. He couldn't even look me in the eye. As we were walking out, he stopped. Margaret, he said quietly, I'm sorry, I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry. I looked at him, the stranger wearing my husband's face. Why, I asked, just tell me why. He shook his head. I don't know, I felt invisible. You were always working so hard, and Marcus made me feel seen, he made me feel young again, important. It was stupid, I was stupid. You weren't being stupid, I said. Planning to destroy me financially and framing me for abuse, that's not stupidity. That's calculated. That's betrayal. I know. His voice cracked. I know, and I'll have to live with that. He walked away. I watched him get into his car and drive off. 30 years gone in an instant, but I survived. The house sold for $950,000. After the split, I walked away with about $600,000 from the sale plus my 401k, my completely protected $2,500,000 trust, and my dignity intact. Richard took his share and moved down to Miami, Florida to live with a cousin. I haven't heard from him since. I bought a smaller, beautiful home in Leavenworth, Washington. 3 bedrooms, a woodworking shop in the garage, and a spectacular view of the Cascade Mountains. I spend my days now making wooden furniture, walking through the mountain trails, and volunteering at the local senior center. I reconnected deeply with my 3 kids, Leo 38, Sarah 35, and Jason 32. I sat them down and explained everything. They were heartbroken, but they understood. They had noticed their father's distance, too. 6 months after the divorce, I got a call from my old IT friend Chloe. "Margaret, I thought you should know, Susan Miller tried to sue Summit Engineering for wrongful termination. The judge threw the case out immediately. The evidence of your data theft was so clear, it didn't even require deliberation. And there's more. Marcus Thorne is being investigated by the SEC and the State Financial Regulatory Board. For other people have filed complaints with similar stories, 2 women and 2 men. Apparently, his entire business model was based on helping people defraud their spouses. They permanently revoked his financial advisory license." I thanked Chloe and hung up. I didn't feel joy exactly, just a quiet sense of justice, like watching the universe finally balance the scales. But the story didn't end there. 3 months after that call, I received a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. It was a woman named Brenda Lewis. She told me she was Richard's new partner and needed to speak with me urgently. I hesitated. Part of me wanted absolutely nothing to do with Richard's life, but curiosity won out. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop in Tacoma. Brenda turned out to be an elegant woman in her early 50s, but she had a look of profound exhaustion. "Mrs. Vance, thank you for coming. I know this is strange, but I needed to warn you." "Warn me?" Brenda pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots. "Richard told me you 2 divorced because you had an affair. He said you hid money from him, that you were abusive and controlling. For months I believed him, but 2 weeks ago I found these messages on his phone." The messages were between Richard and another shady financial advisor. Different name, but the exact same scheme. Richard was planning to do the exact same thing to Brenda that he had tried to do to me. "He deliberately targets women with money," Brenda said, tears welling in her eyes. "I sold my boutique business 6 months ago and cleared $1 million. Now I realize that was the exact moment he became more loving. He's planning to marry me, wait a year, and then divorce me to take half." I sat in silence processing this. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked. "Because I Googled your name. I found public records about your case, about how you locked up your assets. I need to know how you did it, and I thought you deserved to know the truth about who he really is." I gave her attorney Evelyn Cross's contact information. I told her my full story. I showed her she wasn't alone, that justice was possible. Brenda ended her relationship with Richard that very same week. He tried to convince her I was just a bitter, lying ex-wife, but Brenda had seen the text messages. She knew the truth. Richard ended up entirely alone in Miami, working a part-time job selling timeshares to tourists. His reputation back in Washington was destroyed. The few mutual friends he had left cut him off completely when the full story came to light. But the biggest revelation came a year after the divorce. My son Leo came up to visit me in Leavenworth. He brought his wife Elena and my 2 grandkids. After lunch, while the kids were playing in the yard, Leo sat down with me on the patio. "Mom, I need to tell you something I've been keeping to myself for a long time." My heart raced. "What is it?" "Honey, 3 years ago, Dad asked me to loan him some money. He said he had a surefire investment opportunity, $1,500. I gave it to him because he's my dad. He never paid it back. When I asked him about it later, he just said the investment fell through." Leo pulled out his phone. "But a few months ago, I was cleaning out some old synced family cloud accounts and I found the receipts. Dad never made an investment. He used my money to pay for the hotel rooms and the steakhouse dinners with Marcus Thorne." Tears streamed down Leo's face. "He didn't just betray you, Mom, he betrayed all of us. He used his own son's money to fund his affair." I hugged him while he cried. My 38-year-old son, a successful industrial engineer with his own family, sobbing like a little boy over his father's betrayal. "Sarah and Jason know too," he continued. "We all found things out. Sarah realized Dad had pawned some of Grandma's jewelry that was supposed to go to her. Jason found out Dad forged his signature on a tax document years ago. We wanted to tell you sooner, but we didn't know how. That night, after Leo and Elena left, I sat on my patio drinking French press coffee, looking at the silhouette of Mount Rainier illuminated by the moonlight. I thought about all the years, all the lies, all the betrayal that went so much deeper than I had ever imagined, but I also thought about something else. I thought about how I had protected not just my future, but the legacy of my children. How I had fought back, not with screaming or violence, but with intelligence, patience, and strategy. Richard hadn't just lost a marriage, he lost his children, he lost his reputation, he lost his dignity. And I had won something far more valuable than $2,500,000. I had won the absolute respect of my kids, the admiration of my community, and the profound peace of knowing I had done the right thing. Justice, I learned, isn't always immediate, but when it arrives, it is absolute. Today I am 66 years old. It's been a year and a half since the divorce. My life is completely different, and when I say different, I mean infinitely better. My money is safe in the trust, generating enough interest that I live incredibly comfortably without ever touching the principal. My house in Leavenworth is my sanctuary. I have my workshop where I build furniture that I sell at the local artisan market on weekends, not because I need the money, but because I love creating things with my own two hands after 32 years of designing buildings on a computer screen. My kids visit me all the time. Leo and Elena bring the grandkids every other weekend. Sarah, who went through her own divorce 5 years ago, moved up closer to the mountains, and we are now best friends as well as mother and daughter. Jason just got married, and his new wife is wonderful. They have all told me repeatedly how proud they are of how I handled the nightmare with their father. 3 months ago, I heard through the grapevine that Richard tried to contact the kids to ask for money. All 3 of them told him no. Not with anger, just with firm, unbreakable boundaries. They told him he needed to take responsibility for his own life choices. Richard is now working as a security guard at a resort complex in Florida. He lives alone in a tiny rented room. From what I hear, he drinks a lot more than he should. He looks 20 years older than 63. I don't feel joy at his suffering, but I don't feel a single ounce of guilt either. He made his choices, I made mine. What I want you to understand, if you are listening to this story and you relate to any part of it, is this: betrayal hurts. The betrayal of someone you loved and supported for decades hurts in places you didn't even know existed in your soul. But the pain does not mean you have to act from a place of pain. That day I came home early and heard him on the phone. I could have run up those oak stairs screaming. I could have confronted him right then and there. I could have acted purely on raw emotion. And if I had, I would have lost everything. Instead, I chose strategy. I chose intelligence. I chose to protect myself first before seeking justice. My advice to anyone in a similar situation is simple. Do not act on emotion, document, plan. Protect yourself first, then seek justice through the proper channels. The legal system exists for a reason. Specialized attorneys exist for a reason. Private investigators exist for a reason. Use them. Do not ever feel ashamed for protecting what is rightfully yours. Do not feel guilty for outsmarting the person who tried to destroy you. And above all, never let anyone make you feel cruel for securing your own future. I wasn't cruel, I was smart, I was strategic. Richard got exactly what he deserved under the law, nothing more, nothing less. Now, when I sit on my patio at sunset, holding a warm mug of coffee, and watching the Cascade Mountains change colors in the fading light, I think about the journey. I think about the Margaret from 2 years ago who heard that phone call and felt her entire world collapsing. And I think about the Margaret of today, who built an entirely new, beautiful world from the ashes. The best revenge, I've learned, isn't destroying the person who betrayed you. The best revenge is building a life so peaceful, so beautiful, and so full of purpose that their betrayal becomes just a tiny footnote in a much greater story. I won my retirement, I won my freedom, I won my dignity. And in the end, that is the only victory that matters. If you like this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments which part shocked you the most. Did Richard deserve any forgiveness? Tell me yes or no down below. Tomorrow there will be more stories. I'll see you then. This narrative is intended solely to inspire reflection on marital relationships, the importance of asset protection, the value of a lifetime of hard work, and maintaining dignity in the face of betrayal. It should not be construed as legal, financial, or professional advice of any kind. If you are facing divorce, marital betrayal, or complex financial situations, please seek the support of qualified professionals, such as specialized family law attorneys, certified financial planners, or licensed therapists. This content is suitable for all audiences and complies with YouTube's family-friendly community guidelines. Disclaimer: this video is created for the sole purpose of entertainment. All situations, characters, and stories in this video are fictional and are built entirely using artificial intelligence technology. We hope you have a relaxing time.